Kathy, morning to you. I think before we begin just unpacking what happened this morning, I think this might be of interest, and I'm sure you know already, but perhaps not. Pistorius, you might know, has a tattoo underneath his right bicep on his arm. Now, according to this, today, the 6th of March, it's the date of his mother's death 12 years ago. So that's apparently the tattoo that Oscar Pistorius has on his arm. It's today, 12 years ago, that his mother passed away.
And one of the newspapers actually picking up on that story, Gareth, talking about how Oscar is actually taking quite an enormous amount of strain. And anyone who's really followed his life knows the impact that losing his mother at such a young age has affected him. And so undoubtedly it can't be easy for him to be here today under these circumstances. And again, remembering the loss of an important person in his life. But today, Sheila Johnson back in the witness stand, keeping very calm under a relative amount of provocation and having to face a barrage of questions from defense attorney Barry Roux. And you know, one of the things that he's really doing now, Gareth, is that he's attacking the reliability and the credibility of Johnson as a witness. And you know, eNCA, it's been so interesting to see the amount of detail that Barry Roux is paying in this session of his cross-examination around gunshots, around screaming. Take us through that.
I think, Kathy, certainly in the press gallery today, you know, the general sentiment is whatever problems you may have, if you're exhausted or hungry or whatever, just be very grateful you're not poor Sheila Johnson today, because he is just getting round after round of questioning. And, you know, Barry Roux, you know, he'll ask you the most provocative question and can actually be incredibly rude, but he does it with a smile, doesn't he? He's sort of like the smiling executioner. But, you know, I think what he's trying to introduce is this element of doubt between the gunshot and the cricket bat, because if you look at the time, probably we presume from the telephone records of when Sheila Johnson made the first telephone call to security at 3:16, and when Oscar Pistorius says he made a call to Mr. Sunder, the security manager at the place where he was staying, at 3:19, that time is when the shots went off. And they're saying that's just not possible, that it must have been a cricket bat. There is no ways that what Sheila Johnson and his wife Michelle Berger heard were shots going off. It must be a cricket bat. So he's trying to really plant that seed in the courtroom with the judge and assessors that there is no ways that that's what they could have heard. What they thought they heard, in fact, wasn't.
And again, the issue of tailoring evidence coming up quite predominantly in the cross-examination. At one point, Roux actually saying that Johnson's interpretation is designed to incriminate the accused. That's quite heavy coming from Roux.
I mean, he's almost insinuating that Johnson and Michelle Berger are liars, really, I think, by saying that they're trying to incriminate them. What I think hasn't been answered is, why would they do that? What would be in it for them to lie about what they heard? And I'm sure that's a question that is going through the judge and assessor's minds too. I don't think it's been answered.
And Barry Roux nitpicking on a lot of the details. We've spoken about the gunshots. Let's speak about the screaming that he heard. You know, he's being taken back not only to the version that he's put as a statement before the court, but then to the notes that he took soon after that. And Barry Roux is trying to point out that there are discrepancies in both, and so he must ultimately be lying.
I think that the difference, you know, the 6 main differences between what was said in the statement and in the notes was explained by Johnson saying, you know, these were rough notes, and we had discussed it before we went to the lawyer. We wanted to be anonymous. We knew this was going to turn into a very high-profile matter, and those notes were just a guide. But Roux doesn't seem happy with that. Johnson also said, you know, I am so certain that I heard a woman scream because I was so full of adrenaline at that time. My heart was pumping. I was acute, and my senses were sharp. I know that I heard a woman. And Roux said, have you ever heard Mr. Pistorius when he's stressed? Have you heard him scream? And noticed that he has quite an effeminate sounding voice. And Johnson said, of course, No, so there is again that element of doubt that Roo has managed to inject into his testimony.
And it seems that Roo is going to be sticking to this line of argument of Oscar almost sounding like a girl when he screams. When you look at how many times he's actually brought it up, every time the issue of the screams has come up, particularly from Charles Johnson and his wife Michelle Berger.
I'd be interested to know what Oscar Pistorius feels about this line of defense, because I get the sense that, you know, being interested in guns and the way he was photographed, he seems like quite a macho figure. And I watch him quite closely when this constantly comes up of him screaming like a woman. So I'd like to know what actually goes on behind the scenes in chambers, you know, when this defense was brought up. Perhaps they're going to bring in a sound recording. Perhaps they're going to bring in a test, because they certainly seem very well versed and very well prepared for this line of defense.
And let's talk about what's happening in the gallery where you're sitting, Annika. What is the reaction of journalists, especially during some of these tense moments that you get with Barry Roo and the witness? Today he's seeming much faster, Carl Johnson that is, than he has been over the last 2 days.
I think Charles Johnson is a good witness. He doesn't seem at all flustered today. He seems quite sure of himself. In the gallery, I can tell you, in the overflow room where I am today for half of the time, the minute the court was adjourned, the journalists, everyone just sighed and said, "We're so confused. This is incredibly confusing." You know, Barry Roo makes your head spin. I mean, he could convince you that you didn't actually know your own name if he went on for long enough. So I think that he's trying to confuse the witness, and I think he's confusing journalists to an extent too.
Oh wow, certainly Barry Roo looks like is going to continue talking circles, not only around the witness, but as Annika said, bringing quite a bit of confusion even to the judge, who has at several moments sought clarity from him about the points he's trying to raise. But that's all we have for you for now from the North Gauteng High Court. More details after the tea break. Back to you in studio.
You deserve to know more.
eNCA.com